if you want to run a marathon, what are the steps to be able to do that? To scale a bookkeeping business is exactly the same. What do I have to figure out to be able to scale it? And when I hit a glass ceiling, and they're glass ceilings, they're called glass ceilings because, you can just smash through those if you figure it out. It's all there. If you want to scale a bookkeeping business, it is all there. If you're running a bookkeeping business at any level now, you can scale it to whatever level you want.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and our guest today is joining us all the way from Brisbane, Australia. She has over 25 years experience with small businesses, specializing in both business development and supporting business owners to achieve their goals. Most recently, she spent 4 years building a bookkeeping business from 2 bookkeepers to 12 using the Pure Bookkeeping System. Welcome to the podcast, Sharon Francisco.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's good to be here.
It is great to have you here, and you've been on the show several times, and we'll have links to the episodes for our listener to go and listen to those. And Sharon, it's great to have you back to share some wisdom. Your episodes are one of those episodes that I constantly hear our listeners say to me, "Oh, I love that episode with Sharon. I've listened to it like 5 times."
Oh, how nice is that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of, number one, you're somebody who understands and has empathy for other business owners trying to grow their business. And as well, you've gone and done it yourself. You've demonstrated that it's possible to grow a really successful bookkeeping business, which is inspirational for our listener.
Yeah, I think, and I think also too, me not being a bookkeeper and accountant, actually being crap at numbers, I think that's kind of a really interesting take on scaling a bookkeeping business. So yeah, I think it's just a unique sort of combination, which I think gives bookkeepers a real hope that if they're wanting to scale a bookkeeping business, if somebody that's not a bookkeeper or an accountant can do that, that sort of, I think it's just, follow the bouncing ball, really, and if I've sort of worked out a bit of a formula on how to do that, I think it just gives a lot of hope that anyone that's wanting to do that is able to do it, essentially.
Absolutely. And, if you think about E-Myth, we've talked about E-Myth, which was written by Michael E. Gerber over probably now 40 years ago. It is literally the small business Bible about building systems. Like, what is the book really about? It's about building systems and processes in your business that other people can follow. And if, when Michael was writing in the books, one of the examples he talks about is McDonald's. McDonald's is a system-driven business. And that business, when the people who founded the McDonald, I don't think they're called the McDonald's brothers, but I can't even remember now what the name of the actual people who started McDonald's. When they built McDonald's, they were trying to build the best burger, the most efficient burger, friendly atmosphere, environment. And so, but they needed kids to run it.
Yeah.
Because that was their staff. And so they figured out a way to make the most efficient restaurant, and every single piece of that business had a documented system and a process. It wasn't like, today we're going to figure out how to flip the burger. No, we figured that out yesterday. It's been documented. This is how you do it. And they trained every single staff member in the system. And so that then restaurant delivered a repeatable experience for their customers. Every time their customer came back, it was exactly the same great burger that they had before. And it was being run by school kids. Yeah. And so really thinking of what power systems have, when we think of pure bookkeeping being a documented best practice bookkeeping from start to finish, And what that makes possible for a bookkeeping business is that the challenges, the figuring things out, the how do you do that, all of that goes away when you implement those systems. And you proved that because you're not a bookkeeper. You took those systems and processes and you implemented them. Now, you brought your own flavor. I mean, it's not like every single person is just going to be able to take this on and do it exactly the way you're going to do it. You brought your own flavor. What do you think were some of your own magical touches that you brought to your business?
Yeah, I just want to make a point with eMyth. That was one of the first books we were given. I was 22 years of age when I bought my first business, and we got a business coach in that business, and he gave us the eMyth. And honestly, that book changed my life. The way that, I guess, it changed my life then, because I was like, unconscious, what is the word? Unconscious competent? Conscious uncompetent. Anyway, I didn't know what I was doing.
I love the learning ladders, if you will. And so they're like big words, but it's so amazing to talk about it. So let's unpack that a bit, because I think a lot of the work that you do mentoring business owners and bookkeeping business owners has everything to do with the ladders. And I remember when I first heard about these ladders, I was in a coach training program. This was like 15, 20 years ago. But I kind of like, and I think it's great. And we've talked a little bit about it on the show, but I think this is one that I like to refresh my own self around. And I think our listener will get a ton out of it too. So it's kind of laughable too, when you think about the different levels. So unconscious incompetent.
Yeah.
It's like, I love it. Unconscious incompetence. You are unconscious to the fact that you are totally incompetent.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Which is most of what's going on. So continue.
Yeah. Well, just reading that book was just, to me, like, it just opened my whole world. It's like, the business we bought was a furniture and interior design store. And we sort of fumbled around for the first 12 months, and we thought, we're doing okay. And we decided, look, let's just get a business coach and see what they can do to help us. And in hindsight, look, I've coached business coaches in Australia and London. And in hindsight, looking back on what he coached us on, it wasn't necessarily, it was pretty simple. It was a pretty simple sort of process that he took us through. And, as I said, the first step was to read the eMyth Bookkeeper. But in that 12 months, we increased our turnover by 300% and still maintained our profit margins. And honestly, it was mostly accountability and just opening our eyes, Michael, to what's possible. And the first step with that was, the eMyth. But then, I'm so blown away that, Debbie Roberts from Pure Bookkeeping and Peter Cook were able to team up with Michael Gerber and write the eMyth Bookkeeper. That's a Bible for bookkeepers. That's just like incredible to be able to have a book like that designed exactly for bookkeepers. So my encouragement, just, you sort of touched on that earlier. My encouragement is to grab that book and read it. It's sensational, because it really encompasses everything we're about to talk about, like where all the glass ceilings are and how to scale a bookkeeping business and what might be the stops through that journey.
It is remarkable, and many, including myself, early days, and I've gone to business school, and I've worked for large corporations, and honestly, systems and thinking systems is not common. So for people to read that and get and understand, this really is the foundation of making a business that will actually give you what you want. And that's often not the case. Many people start businesses and they might do okay, but there's many things that can go wrong. And all the problems come back to not having systems in place. And eMyth with Michael Gerber, where that book, the opportunity to even work with Michael Gerber, it was early 2000, I think it was 2013, and I had an opportunity to interview Michael Gerber in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Yes, and so this was when we had just brought Pure Bookkeeping to Canada, And so I had all of the systems and binders. I'm like, I'm going to meet Michael Gerber. And so Michael Gerber, his book, E-Myth, was a very similar story for Pete and Deb. Debbie was a bookkeeper, was running her business as her own entity for about 18 months. She had been bookkeeping for 20 years, started her business, and then was like, this is not going well. There's like, what am I missing? She meets a business coach, that's Peter Cook, and literally says, look, you got to read E-Myth, right? You're trying to teach other people to run your business your way, but it's all up in your head. You got to get what's in your head onto paper, documented such that anybody, even a high school student, could come along, read those instructions, learn the instructions, and implement it. So when Deb and Pete heard that I was going to meet Michael Gerber, Deb was blown away. I mean, she had built her business, everything, this wonderful business and lifestyle that she'd created was because of Michael Gerber. Well, I hauled in there. At this time, they were binders. All of it's now online and online learning and all that good stuff. But these are binders, bags full of binders. And I brought these binders to Michael and I said, look, Michael, I interviewed him and all that stuff. I'd love to share this story of Debbie Roberts and Peter Cook, who followed your book. And they'd love to get a copy I'd bought 2 books to get signed, E-Myth, to get signed, one for Pete and one for Debbie. And I said, here's the systems that they created. So he started flipping through these systems, and this is like 1,000 pages of documented systems, right? It's massive. Yeah. And he couldn't believe it. He said this was likely the most put together system that he'd ever seen for an industry that he had no idea even existed. And so right then he actually said, Michael, turn on the recorder. Let's record. I want to send Debbie and Peter a message. And he did an invitation saying, Debbie and Peter, I want you to write E-Myth Bookkeeper. Give me a call. And so it was like this crazy story of how that all came to be.
I did not know that journey. I really did not know that story. So there you go. He contacted them.
He invited them to write that book because they were just fans, right? Who would have thought possible? Now it all turned out and it worked out. And so now it's been a fantastic book for bookkeepers to learn about systems from a bookkeeping perspective, right? A lot of books out there about systems. E-Myth is about systems. Great book. Need to read that book. But from a bookkeeper who built the systems, followed Michael Gerber's methodology for 6 years and was coached by Peter, who kept her on track and accountable to building those systems for 6 years, and then have that be created. I mean, it all came back to, this is a bookkeeper who wrote this about doing it yourself, or if you are interested in that, we have Pure Bookkeeping. That is what Pure Bookkeeping is, providing those systems to our licensees.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's like the best kept secret, I reckon, with a bookkeeping business. It's like what bookkeepers have in their hands at any stage in that, from 0 to 150, that it's, essentially to begin with, you're doing, trading hours for dollars and what have you, or a few packages or whatever, but you're essentially bought yourself a job up to that stage. But I think the potential of what bookkeepers have in their hands to be able to scale the business, to be able to, most bookkeepers that I coach and accountants that I coach really wanting to step back from that day-to-day grind of compliance. And it's there. It's like the best kept secret. It's if you follow the bouncing ball and the steps to be able to scale your business, it's what's in your hands right now, you're able to do that. And I find like everything, Maria Forleo, I'm not sure if you know of her, she's got a book called Everything is Figure Outable. It's like, even like if you want to run a marathon, what are the steps to be able to do that? To scale a bookkeeping business is exactly the same. What do I have to figure out to be able to scale it? And when I hit a glass ceiling, and they're glass ceilings, they're called glass ceilings because, you can just smash through those if you figure it out. It's all there. If you want to scale a bookkeeping business, it is all there. If you're running a bookkeeping business at any level now, you can scale it to whatever level you want. And again, if I can do it not being a bookkeeper and being crap at numbers, you can do it too. There's no doubt.
It is absolutely figure outable and actually doable because it's already built for you and ready to roll. So it's pretty cool. And I mean, I just love it. I mean, it's what I do every day is figure out systems and talk to people about systems. And so maybe I'm uber excited about systems, but I was literally going through something just today and realized that, I had to figure out, this was something unrelated in our business where I had to work with somebody who just had no technical, was very low on the technical skills. And it was frustrating. And so I had to literally get things down to as if I was having someone who'd never worked with a computer before. I had to document it down to exact, explicit instructions on how to do that. And so I was doing this unconsciously, I guess you could say, and it was frustrating. But then I realized, it was kind of like this aha moment. I'm like, my goodness, I just went into an unrelated part of our business, a new part of our business, and I was frustrated about having to create these really finite instructions to actually accomplish this outcome. But then I realized that level of instructions, as frustrating and as difficult and tedious it was to create those, is just another example of the systems Pure Bookkeeping has built for bookkeepers, in that now that I've done that, anybody would be able to take those instructions, and I mean anybody would be able to take those instructions and do exactly what I want them to do to a 10 out of 10, because it's that explicit. Now in life, often, and this is also an E-Myth, they talk about this in E-Myth, is where you get these people you get people into your business that they're actually they're switched on and they understand it. And it's like you've got this gift of a person that comes in. It's like, oh no, I know how to do that. It's all good. Yeah, I got that. Perfect. Well, this is great. This is amazing. Oh my God, let's hire more people, right? But then the reality is that there's very few people like that. And there's always parts of the business where someone will come in and need to do something, but they won't have that type of thinking or understanding. And that's where the chaos really begins, is that when you build these systems in a way that are repeatable, I mean, right down to a high school student, a 5-year-old, whatever. I mean, 5-year-olds maybe a bit extreme because they couldn't even likely read the instructions, but we could create some videos that would literally walk them through step by step. So I get excited about it, as you can tell.
Oh, definitely. And it's where the freedom is. You've got all the right to be excited, because that's where the freedom is. As soon as you systemize something, that's when you can start stepping back. But, there's all this stuff that comes in around mindset as well, which is, it's part of all of that. It's all these glass ceiling stuff. I love that saying, Michael, the magic you're looking for is in the work you avoid. So even if we've got the systems, sometimes even just keeping those systems current or up to date and making sure that you're staying with those to, so your team don't recreate systems if they're sort of a little bit old. So I guess there's layers, isn't there, to those sort of things? It's
there is
not just a silver bullet, is it?
Exactly. There are layers. Now, when getting back to your business, Sharon, what were we've talked about all these different angles around systems and process, and we were talking about, opened up all of these loops, in fact, and it's maybe I just having one of those days, but we started with the learnings, the levels of learning, right? Unconscious incompetence. You have no idea that you have no idea. And then the next layer up is conscious incompetence. And that's where you discover, it's like, wow, I'm incompetent in these areas. And then from there, you go to conscious competence or unconscious competence. All of a sudden, you have the ability to do, you're conscious that you're competent at it. Unconscious incompetence, which is like you're unaware how great you are at it, to mastery. So it's a little bit confusing, I guess. But I think what that ladder does for people is it creates a level of, okay, it's okay for me to be at whatever level you're at, because the way to step up the ladder is to keep learning, keep listening, keep reading, keep trying. And eventually you realize that you've arrived at mastery, which essentially you would have in your business when you were growing your business. But what highs and lows did you have while you were running and building that bookkeeping business?
Oh, there were so many highs and lows. I think, again, when you sort of hit each of those levels, I know Pure Bookkeeping, we've got the Bookkeeping Business Blueprint, which is something that I printed out and had up on the wall right from the beginning. And for those that don't know it, it's the different levels of the business. Goes in $100,000 increments. So white belt is $100,000. It goes up $100,000 right until you get to that black belt level, which is between $600,000 and $1 million. So as soon as I saw that, Bookkeeping Business Blueprint, I printed it out, put it up on the wall. I'm like, right, black belt, that's where I want to go. And I think, the highs and lows, there were so many highs. It was just exciting because I didn't have that, I wasn't working on the tools, Michael. I wasn't drawn back to the tools. I just sort of had this, I guess, direction I wanted to go. It's like the feeling I had was like, get out of my way. That's where I'm going. And whatever hurdle came up, which there were like quite a few, it's just, again, it was like everything's figure outable. Like, what do I have to do with this? And certainly, there's, I guess, 4 sort of things that I feel, critical steps to build a bookkeeping business. So if you're okay, could I go through those to sort of give a bit of...
I'd love to hear that. Yes.
So I think, I've sort of, done some navel gazing and reflected back on what was it that actually helped me through those highs and lows, and what were the main sort of critical steps that were going to help me get through that. And I think the first one is mindset. So unlike a lot of bookkeepers, my mindset was a bit screwy to begin with because I wasn't, great at numbers. I wasn't a qualified bookkeeper. I wasn't a qualified accountant. And here I am turning up, talking to accountants to, hey, do you want to buy our bookkeeping service? Like, who am I to talk to an accountant about, trying to get referrals? So I kind of had to really quickly figure out my little story of how I'd feel empowered sitting down at those meetings. And that's all about mindset. And certainly I did work out a really great spiel because we were part of Pure Bookkeeping. So I just sold the expertise of my team and being part of a very systemized business. So that was great for accountants, obviously, because they're always looking to refer to great bookkeepers and have the capacity to be able to keep referring as that grew. And we kept adding bookkeepers as the referrals grew. But so mindset, I think there's no doubt with building a bookkeeping business to 100,000, it's a different mindset than to build it to the 500,000 or beyond black belt, which is beyond 700,000. So I believe to really scale your business, you've got to work harder on yourself than you do on your business, which I think is all around that mindset stuff and reading things like the E-Myth and getting a coach and all the things around whatever the glass ceilings that come up, whatever the things that come up as a low or a block. It's something that you just have to work through and know that it's not you. It's just something that, okay, well, I've hit a glass ceiling. What do I need to do to get through that glass ceiling? I love the book. I don't know. Have you ever heard, Michael, the book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck?
I have. Never read it though.
Oh gosh, I got it on Audible about 12, 18 months ago. And she's tricky to listen to on Audible, but look, that book is just amazing. So that's another book I really highly recommend. So basically she talks about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I think fundamentally reading this book is what helped me scale that bookkeeping business with my business partner. So a fixed mindset believes that intelligence is something that you have or you don't have. So usually people with a fixed mindset have a real desire to look smart. So they don't want to sort of look like they don't know. So as a consequence, they avoid challenges and they give up easily. They see effort as a waste of time. They ignore criticism and they feel threatened by the success of others. And we all have a little bit of that fixed mindset. So the growth mindset believes intelligence can actually be developed. So they generally have a desire to learn. So they basically embrace challenges. So anything that comes up as a challenge, it's like, right, what do I need to do to figure that out? They keep going when things get difficult because they know that it's just a process to go through. They also see effort as a path to mastery, and they learn from criticism. So they don't take it to heart. They go, okay, somebody's saying something that I'm not doing well. They'll take that and go, oh, well, what do I need to change to get through that? And they learn from and find inspiration from the success of others. So it's definitely something that I did when I was building the bookkeeping business. It was like I was seeking out people that had done the same thing. And I do that across everything in my life. Like when I ran a marathon, it's like, okay, well, the first thing that I need to do is get a coach. And one step before that, I found a lady about my age with a couple of kids working a full-time job, exactly like I was, that was training for a marathon and done a few marathons herself. I'm like, okay, well, what did you do, Karina, to run that marathon? So it's really seeking out people that have done the same thing and sort of figuring out what they've done and seeing how you align with them to be able to help you grow. So, yeah, I think mindset's definitely the number one thing.
I love that, and I think we don't think enough about it often as human beings. We're constantly just doing, and we don't think about what's our mind actually playing out for us and saying to us. And so that's where a second set of eyeballs or second set of ears can help. And that's really the big opportunity with a coach or a mentor, is that they can listen to and look for and see different things inside of us that could say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you tried doing that? You kind of thinking small there, or gee, you really haven't thought all about that. And those questions can prompt us into brand new, complete new canvas to work with in our life and in our business. And you said something interesting there as well, that, I mean, I've spoken to you numerous times, and I love your story about how you built this business. And I think that's really, the opportunity when you can get off of the tools, when you can get off of the books and get working on your business, when you can stop working in your business and start working on your business, is a breakaway point. And that you proved that, right? You were able to go and develop relationships and partnerships and lead generation because you weren't on the books, because you couldn't be on the books because you're not a bookkeeper.
Yeah. And it was the biggest asset. I didn't even know it at the time, but it's the biggest asset because, it's that thing that keeps dragging bookkeepers back into the tools, because it's, the common theme that I hear, a line that I hear often from bookkeepers is, it's just quicker and easier if I do it. And it is. That's the truth.
That's right.
When you're training people, it's like it's painful and it takes a bit. And, it's not done as perfectly as what, you can do it sometimes. But, as long as they're doing a great job and, that they might do it a little bit different. But, yeah, as long as and again, that's the need for systemization, right? So if you've got a system to follow. And I just had confidence because I knew, obviously got to know Debbie Roberts quite well within that time. And, she was like my lifeline, especially when I was running the business by myself, which I'll go into in a minute. But she was definitely my lifeline to give me that reassurance that I was on the right track, because you really can't go wrong with a system like Pure Bookkeeping, because that's where I got the confidence from, to know that, hey, if Debbie Roberts has built this and she scaled a business to how many bookkeepers? She had 15, didn't she?
I think it was 12.
12, did she? Yeah. So, I mean, she built a business with those systems, so I had the confidence with that. But
beautiful.
Yeah. So I think the second thing definitely, and I know we've sort of touched on this a bit, Michael, but definitely support is another critical step in scaling a bookkeeping business. Because I don't know about you, but when you sit in your office by yourself day in, day out with your cat as your buddy, you can tend to sort of get really inwardly focused. And having somebody, as you said before, that can, different set of eyeballs, different set of ears, to sort of ask questions that are going to help you see things in a different way and not get so into, just your day-to-day work, it really, really does help. I just think you perform better. It just makes it, you just get a different perspective. I had a branding coach, a personal branding coach a few years ago. And she certainly, what she did for me was really start highlighting to me what skills I had to help really understand how I could scale with what I was doing. And she recognized things in me that I would never have recognized myself, and really gave me a lot of prods to be able to pull that out of myself. And definitely that's, I don't think I'd be sitting here on a podcast as easily talking without her coaching. And certainly, the first coach that I had, I saw the power of coaching when I was 22, helping us scale our business the way that we did. And he really helped us find out our why as well, which is why now we live in Brisbane and, my kids went through the school that they did. He really sort of pushed me to figure out what I wanted out of that business, which was really powerful. Again, the support that we had within my sister-in-law and I's business, we had a coach in that business, and he certainly pushed us very, very hard around, keeping accountable to what we wanted to achieve. And I think that when I noticed the magnitude of support that what support can do for you in a business is when I was coaching business coaches actually over 10 years ago. I coached 130 business coaches in Australia and London. And just seeing, and a lot of those guys were accountant or ex-accountants and engineers and such, so they were very technically minded sort of people. Just to see the shift in those sort of people when you started sort of keeping them accountable to what they wanted to achieve. It's miraculous what you can achieve when you have somebody reminding you and putting that mirror up to your face day in, day out to achieve your goals. So definitely, support is definitely one of the key areas, and especially for bookkeepers, because the temptation to go back on the books is so darn strong. And I get it, because it's where your comfort zone is, isn't it?
It really is. And until there's something that forces one to do it, it will just keep pulling you back in.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so are we good to go on to the next step?
Absolutely.
And leverage to go. So we're good to go on to that?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the next one, the third thing I think that's critical to scale a bookkeeping business is to have systems. And of course, we've already touched on this a little bit, but it's the trickiest, I think, because, it's the balance, isn't it? It's all the things that you've got to be doing the actual, the compliance work, doing the work, and to actually step aside, put time aside to systemize your business is really, really tricky. And even if you start doing that or you fully systemize it, you've got to keep the systems current. So that's another thing that you've got to make sure that you're doing. But the real freedom in business, in any business, but specifically obviously a bookkeeping business, is in systemization. That's where the real freedom is. That's where the real leverage is. I mean, life just becomes very beautiful when you're able to scale back from doing the compliance work and start sort of, I call it moving the chess pieces to be able to be able to scale that business as much as you want, really. And it's what
absolutely.
Yeah. The litmus test for me, I think of, there's all different levels. And I know with pure bookkeeping, there's a whole bunch of different steps you take to fully systemize your business. And I think the litmus test is my sister-in-law, who was a bookkeeper and my business partner. She actually left to go to West Africa with my brother for 2 years and left me in Australia to run the business. And the internet in Senegal is really bad. So we didn't get to connect. We tried to connect weekly, but it wasn't always successful. But basically, I ran that business from Australia with very little sort of contact with Tanya for 2 years by myself. And that really made us systemize very, very well, because I relied a lot on our team. We had 3 accountants working for us and the rest were bookkeepers. So I made sure that everything was completely systemized and they were following the systems to a T, because essentially I was the one, the front person with our clients. So if anything went wrong, I was the one that was answerable. So we really made sure before Tanya left for Senegal that business was systemized really, really well. So, and that's where, obviously there's a lot of good things that come from systemizing, and definitely, more profit, more growth, more time, more control and less stress is when you fully systemized your business. That's for sure.
remarkable. And, just to think, you're living proof that the systems helped you scale remarkably, because the scale came after the system. You create the systems and the foundation. And then she left her bookkeeping business in your hands, which then thrived because the compliance work and the actual day-to-day production work of the bookkeeping was handled by the systems.
Yeah. And that's what's fantastic. I mean, you've just got, I think, well, the next one, the last one is leverage. And that's where I think leverage, to be able to get really good bookkeepers, is the key, Michael, which is the point I just wanted to make. Then you've got to be a real, like a maniac around your recruitment process. And I think, again, and I know I keep going back to Pure Bookkeeping, but that HR section of Pure Bookkeeping, I think it's like, I just took that system and followed it like I followed the bouncing ball. I didn't question any of it. Like, I just followed the bouncing ball. I implemented the skills test. I set the emails up exactly like Deb said. I did the ad in Seek exactly like Deb said. So I just followed, which ended up in us having 12 incredible bookkeepers. So I think that's where trusting the process is really important. But I think also with leverage, there's a lot of, I touched on this before, you've got to work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And this is where, especially when you start bringing team members on, you've got to really start learning how to lead a team. And I think, in the coaching I've done, I've heard bookkeepers talk about, team coming and going, and the tricky part about, leveraging yourself out of the business and scaling a business is dealing with the team. And I think it's a really important thing to make them feel part of the heartbeat and the growth of the business. So we did really cool things with our team. I mean, we'd plan like fun outings. We went on a wine tour one year just as a celebration. The business was obviously growing fast, so we took everyone out on a wine tour and we had a beautiful lunch. And we always made sure that every year at Christmas we'd go out and celebrate, to different places and play trivia, have trivia nights and things like that. So they knew where we were going with the business. That was like a feeling of being part of something that was growing. And I think that was really, for me, the key to the success of the longevity of our bookkeepers and accountants that work for us as well. Just having that sort of regular catch-ups. We'd meet monthly as well, and everyone would and if they couldn't come face-to-face, they'd Skype in, which of course now we need to probably think about a little bit more. But just having those regular catch-ups and finding out how their family are and just connecting with them on a human level, I think is really important. And that's true for onshore and offshore team as well. But yeah, having that rock solid recruitment process is so important if you're going to leverage your business.
So important. And, at that phase, it just comes right back to the beginning, which is the key is to the mindset, to know where you're going and to know what you want to build. And that will lead you through all of the steps that you've just told you again and again and again to scale the business.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been absolutely remarkable, Sharon. I just love your energy. I love your thoughts. I know you have a couple of opportunities to help our listener, and I'd love for you to share how they can get access to that.
Yeah, definitely. So what I've been doing, we did a webinar earlier on and I offered a complimentary strategy session. So I'd love to offer your listeners a complimentary strategy session on how to, if they're if you're sitting around that 100, 150 and you're wanting to scale up to, the 500, 700, or you're just wanting to scale up, another 100,000, I'd be happy to offer a complimentary 45-minute strategy session. There is a little bit of pre-work that I ask for you to do with that, because I do spend an hour or so doing a plan out to make sure that it fits in with your personal needs. So that pre-work is based on where you're at now, what you feel your, glass ceilings are, and some practical questions as well around, where you want to go and what you felt like has stopped you before. And yeah, I'm happy to offer that to the listeners today, Michael.
That's fantastic. I love that. And, I think one of the opportunities that will come out of that call, knowing, I've done many calls like that myself. And I think one of the main opportunities you'll get is you'll come back to mindset. It's like, what are you actually seeing for your business, and what's possible for your business can be uncovered in a call like that.
Yeah, definitely. I've done quite a few. I offered this in this webinar, and I think I had 20 something people book in for it, and the feedback I got was great. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile seeing your business, having somebody see your business through different eyes. So yeah.
So as well, Sharon, I know you're running a webinar very soon, which is, and what's cool is we're going to actually have this webinar. You're going to run this webinar live, which of course the best opportunity to attend these webinars is live, but we will actually be putting that webinar up in our Successful Bookkeeper community learning portal, which everyone can go to the Successful Bookkeeper and sign up for completely free membership to our learning portal and get access to that. So we'll have a link to that, but I recommend people get down under the notes and register for this upcoming webinar. What's the name of the webinar, Sharon?
Yeah, it's how to scale your business beyond that 100K. So similar to what we've talked about today, but I think having the ability to interact, Katrina Arsman, the CEO of Pure Bookkeeping, and I will be hosting that webinar. And certainly she's scaled a bookkeeping business beyond that 500 as well as I have. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to interact, ask us questions. There'll be definitely time for question and answer at the end. So yeah, I'd love people to join us to see, what might help them scale their business.
Excellent. A couple of bookkeeping business masters at work, how to scale your bookkeeping business beyond 100K and beyond. And so that's an exciting opportunity. We'll have the links to register for both a call with Sharon, which I highly recommend, and as well the webinar. And the webinar, if you've missed it, of course, look for it in the learning portal. Just get registered there. Go find that in there. And you can watch it at your leisure. Sharon, this has been absolutely amazing. On behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity again, for coming back on the podcast and spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. It's been really great to be able to share a few little pockets of wisdom to be able to help people if they're looking to scale their business. It's a proven system. Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to be a part of the podcast, and thanks again for inviting me.
It's all our pleasure. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.